Hello, everyone. Hi, Elaine.
Hello, hi.
Hi. I think we have people joined us here for the webinar today. So let me start introducing. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for joining us here today. And we really appreciate you taking out your time to be here with us. To give you a quick overview about what we'll be showing you or talking about today. So as most of us know, the Teradata cost is rising much faster than the IT budget can keep up. And it's effectively stalling your ability to innovate. And today, we wanted to show you how to stop that budget leak and actually find resource you need to innovate for your projects. To walk us through this, I'm joined by Elaine Fletcher. Elaine is the Chief Business Officer at Hoonartek, a former Teradata professional service partner who has spent over 20 years in the hot seat, managing massive data ecosystem for global banks. Elaine is going to share the actual step we used to help a major bank cut the Teradata footprint by 30%. Elaine, over to you.
Hello, thanks for that, Ivan. So hi to everyone who's joined us. So I want to start off by taking a quick look at some of the recent research that's been done by Gartner and IDC. And we can see here that 2025 and also the projections for 2026, they can see growth in spend of 48% for 25 and projection of 31.7 for 2026. So that's from Gartner. And then if we look across to IDC, it's quite interesting because they drill a little bit there to show us how that's made up. So there's the orange bit is the actual storage footprint, and then the blue bit is the server costs, so basically costs of compute. And I think it's probably fair to say that a lot of people on cloud are quite surprised by the bill when it comes in. So I'd like to now narrow down a little bit more and just focus in on Teradata to see, is that about the same or is that different than this global trend? Because the IDC and the Gartner figures are right across all technologies, not specifically Teradata. So just keep in mind those numbers, 48% and 31.7%. And now we're looking at Teradata. And we can see here that most CDOs, they basically made a budgetary provision for around 9%, 10%. And you can see that that really is not enough. You can see the shortfall here. So what we saw in the 25-26 budget was that the increase of 9% was just not in the right ballpark. So on average, there was a range between 12% and 23% increase in their Teradata renewal cost over the previous year. Now, it's interesting because I'm guessing you guys are all somewhere in that range. But one of our clients, it's a global bank, decided we can't actually accommodate that level of growth, and we don't choose to, because in 2025, they'd chosen to deploy a budget in different directions that were strategic to the bank. So they came to us and they said, how can you help us to understand the Teradata costs and to help to plan our strategic migration and help to execute it. And then once it's done, make sure that we've achieved our minus 30% costs, but also make sure that in the coming years, we don't climb back up through growth into that expensive territory again. So we worked with them. And what we did is we agreed with them that the target could be achieved. And in fact, it was achieved for 2025. So we achieved actually a minus 20% footprint. And the other minus 10% was the reduction in compute costs, which some of that was just organic because we were no longer driving the ETL, extract, transform, and load to populate the data sets that were no longer there, but also in terms of compute costs. and costs of data being moved around to accommodate different joins, etc. We'd intelligently placed the data so that we seriously reduced the compute costs as well. So overall, we achieved that 30% target for them. So it can be done. You don't have to sit there and passively accept the cost renewals, because one of the main stays for that bank was, yes, they wanted to hit minus 30%, but they were absolutely not negotiable. There was to be no reduction whatsoever in the service to their business end users, and there wasn't. So it can be done. So before we go into how we did it, my colleague Ivan will be helping me out with a poll for you.
Thanks, Elaine. So all the attendees here, we have a first poll here. So I request all of you to jump in and give your results, your thoughts and your opinion about these questions. So what is your biggest challenge with your current Teradata environment? Oh, I can see a lot of people voting for it.
So while you're voting, I will just carry on, and then we'll take a look in a few moments at the results of the poll. But
Sure.
now I'll just crack on, and we can see that the pattern isn't new, but what has changed is that it's accelerating both last year and this year. So we're seeing that those costs are really driven by the introduction of agentic AI within a lot of our client base, but also that in parallel to that, there's increased regulatory governance demands that are coming in as well, and not just across financial services, but across a lot of other financially and a lot of other regulated industries as well. And then, of course, we've just got the year-on-year organic growth of data volumes. So what we've done is we followed a 5-step blueprint, which is highly automated. There's a lot of accelerators and framework components sitting behind this blueprint. So part of it is humans, part of it is AI, part of it is automation. But basically what we do is we help you to get the visibility so that you can take control and optimize the data placements intelligently. That means that you can unlock immediate savings step by step with us. So we'll go through the preparation step, the execution step at the end, and then the 3 steps in the middle, which are where we do a deep dive together with you in the discovery and analysis. But before we do that, I think it would be good if Ivan can share with us the results of the poll.
Yes, Elaine. So I published the poll results, and I see rising licensing cost is the most concerned challenge over here.
Right. I guess that's not a surprise given where we're at. But hopefully that won't be such an issue if people follow the blueprint steps. So let's start going through them.
Sorry.
So the first step, which is our prep, this is quite a busy step. And this is where we need to spend some time with you guys because we need to do a workshop. So the key stakeholders sit with us and they help us to understand the highest priorities and also the constraints that you have. So I think we can see from the poll as well that most of our clients, the cost of footprint and the cost of compute and query grid is number one on their agenda. They want to understand what's driving those costs and they want to be able to control those costs. On top of that, though, it's interesting because we see a lot of our clients say, well, it's not just about the costs. One of the biggest problems we have, if we could wave the proverbial magic wand and change anything at all, we have an issue because we have multiple metrics that should align. They're about the same business item, but they don't align and they cause a lot of business confusion. So, for example, I'm sitting here holding a biro. Maybe there are 5 KPIs about this biro. So the first question you would ask is, well, why on earth would we have 5 KPIs? One KPI will tell us about this biro. There's an old phrase which I love. It's a man with a watch knows the time. A man with 2 watches is never sure. Well, I'm afraid in this instance, we've got 5 watches. So we're never quite clear on the time because they don't reconcile. So first of all, what our blueprint will do is help us to understand why you have those 5 metrics, how maybe 3 of them are actually the same, but just have different names and are held on different parts of the system because people have duplicated things over the years. But 2 of them are completely different. So one of them might be a rolling month to date, for example, and another one might be a specific metric about this biro that is used by people in a particular geography. So it excludes certain things for tax reasons that other geographies need to include. So there might be very valid reasons why those 2 other metrics need to be there, but they need to be very clearly delineated in a business catalogue so that business users, when they're faced with 5 metrics about this biro, they know which one is the right one that I want to pick. So ideally, we would recommend that the 3 duplicates get rationalized, so you only have 1 surviving instance. That not only saves some compute costs and some footprint, but it also stops confusion because people are using then 1 curated published data product as opposed to just randomly picking one. So that solution will actually also help the 3rd bullet, which is weak business user visibility, because a lot of our clients, they either have little or no curated data products. So business users end up rolling their own, and that's really how we end up with multiple metrics about the same business subject area that confuse everybody. So this solution, as well as cutting costs, it will actually solve all of these issues about multiple metrics, publishing curated data products, etc. The final one that we often hear at these business workshops is that everyone's starting to introduce ML models and automated agents, but what they need to do is have a production mirror data set that is GDPR safe so that they can train these models. Because obviously with GDPR, you can only use production data if you have a consent from the data owner. And nobody really wants to go back to their customers and say, can I please have a consent to use your data for training our AI models? Because we all know it's a bit like Marmite. Some people love AI, some people hate and fear AI. So it's best to use something other than production data sets. So we basically produce production mirror data sets that are GDPR safe, but maintain all of the key topology within the data sets of production. So they're really useful for training ML models. So the other thing that we'll do when we end the workshop, basically, we will have agreed on the scope and the constraints. So, for example, the bank that we mentioned earlier on that we worked with in 2025, they, like many financial institutions, have legal rules that say all China data has to stay on-prem. So when we're busy moving things onto cloud, we have to leave China data on-prem, which sounds extremely simple. However, the bank said, well, of course, we know where the China data comes in from and we can see it landing. But after that, we kind of know it goes to millions of different places. We've no idea where, and they're not all obvious. And we know it's going to get joined in millions of places as well. So that's why we really haven't gone to cloud yet, because we don't know, where we need to keep things on-prem. So that was the first thing we did with them, as we used our blueprint to identify all of the data, not just China data, but all of the data that needed to be tagged as must remain on-prem. And we then followed that through the end-to-end lineage to see exactly where it went to, how it was used in transforms and joins, where it was landed, etc. And we made sure then that upstream and downstream, all of those data dependencies remained on-prem, because we want to prevent QueryGrid from doing what QueryGrid does, which is very happily do all the joins, but move data around so that it can do the joins. So ideally, if the data is in the right place in the first place to do those joins, then QueryGrid isn't clocking up a bill for you. Once we've done all of that, we then do the migration. We then click into business as usual, doing automated monthly archives. And we can then start to publish curated data products and track the usage of those products. So you'll see those as we walk through in a bit more detail. We also publish the AI feature stores, etc. So while we were doing the business focus work stream that we just walked through, you can see there's another work stream going on the right-hand side of this slide, which is our technical work stream. So we're busy then using our blueprints automation to populate the metadata repository from your sources. We're also populating a business catalog. Now, it's interesting because most of our customers at this point say, oh, well, there's the blocker. We don't have a business catalog. We would love to have an enterprise-wide business catalog to align everything within our organization, but that is going to take years to get that. We've tried it a few times and we've not been able to manage it. So sorry, end of story. At which point we put our hand up and we say, well, it's not end of story because we can do it for you. It's part of what we do in the blueprint. So what we will do, we will crack on and we will load up all the technical metadata so we know how all of the data comes in, how it moves through end to end, how it's transformed, how it's consumed. And we then will also ingest whatever business catalogs we can get from the different departments and teams who usually have something by way of a spreadsheet or a Word document, or maybe they're using something like Calibra for part of their work or whatever. But we will ingest the business catalogs from whichever places your different teams use them, and we will pull them together and align them. That is non-trivial because often there are big gaps and often there are collisions where multiple instances of, as we were talking before, the Bible come into play. But what we do is we use semantic discovery within our blueprint, and our blueprint can then suggest the right pairings and the right mappings. But that's where the human in the loops comes. We're not asking your business users to give us the accurate business catalog. We're just asking them to look at the exceptions. So where we come back and we say there are some gaps, and this is where our blueprint is suggesting we fill the gap, they'll usually say, oh yeah, that is really good. We can use that one, or maybe we already do use that one, but we haven't got around to putting it into the business catalog. Other times they'll say, yeah, I can see why you'd suggest that one, but I don't want you to pick that one. I want you to pick this other one, in which case we can just very simply adjust them. But we found it's not difficult to get business users time because we're not asking for a lot of time, and we're not giving them a blank sheet. We're giving them something that is 99% filled in, and we just give them a few exceptions just to look at and give us a steer. After that, we have got you to the happy stage where you now have an end-to-end, fully aligned business catalog that you can use for this project, but you can use for every other project that you want to use going forward, because we can export that into whatever tool you want to export it to, if you want to, or you can happily use it within this tool. Yeah. So at the end of the workshop, we're ready to go. So now the fun starts. The first thing we can show you is end-to-end data lineage and dependency analysis, and we can also tag different data sets for migration and archival. So it's a bit of a crowded image because there's quite a lot on it, but just so that you understand what's going on here, the blue, these areas are basically data sets that are at rest. And the green are data sets that are in the middle of a transform or a computation, like a join or whatever. So we can see here quite a complicated join going on. We can see data getting pulled from multiple places and then transformed and then landed into a different place. So this is where data is being aligned into a new data set, probably for a report or a piece of analysis or a MART, etc. So these are very typical patterns that you will see. We don't need human beings to look at these and understand everything. Again, 99% of all of this is done automatically by the blueprint. And where we kick out a couple of breaks in lineage or a few anomalies, that is then when we go through and do some Q&A with your organization, your DBAs, etc. And we'll ask them, is it option A or option B? Because we can see both, and then they will steer us. So again, this is largely automated. What we've just looked at in the data lineage is what I think of as the production cycle. It's a bit like a supermarket. That was us stacking the shelves with all of the data sets. Now what we're interested in is when we open the door to the supermarket and people start walking down the aisles with their trolleys, what are they looking at? What are they putting in? how are they, what kind of trolleys have they got? So here, this is where we're looking at how are people consuming this data that's being populated. So we can pick on the database that's of interest, and we can look at different databases that are being used in and around that database. We can look at the top tables by usage. Now, a lot of people at this point will say to me, hey, Elaine, I can see that anyway from the Teradata logs. You're not telling me anything new here. Which is fine. Yeah, you can see the both of those two items from the Teradata logs themselves. But what you don't see are who are the top users. So who are the people, the human beings? And unfortunately, we've had to grey everything out here because this is a real screenshot from a bank. But you can see individual users. You can also see who are the top business departments that are using this particular data set. You can look at the top applications, so business applications. So it may be an ERP tool, SAP, whatever, or it might be particular business reporting tools. We can also look at query tools here. So, are people using business objects or whatever, or Click, what is it that people are using? So based on now a detailed understanding of both the producer cycle and the consumer cycle, the blueprint will have set tags in place as to what data is safe to be migrated onto cloud and what data needs to stay on-prem, not because it's the obvious thing, it's not China data, but it has some upstream or downstream dependencies on China data, for example. So this is the final step in the preparation phase. So here we can see the solution architecture, and what we ask you to do is just work with us to review and approve the business rules. So 99% of those business rules will have been set up right first time by the blueprint automatically, but where there are exceptions, we will ask for your help on your steer to steer those business rules. But also when you do a final review, quite often business stakeholders will say, yeah, I can see how that is a logical thing to do and it will save us money, but politically, I know that guy. He's not going to want to wait 1 minute to get his report up on the screen. He's going to scream. So let's just override that business rule and make sure that anything that particular guy looks at will always be populated from the more expensive, very, very fast parts of the Teradata solution. So we realize, we're human, so we allow people to override things. The other things that we'll do here is the user access management layer will allow you to set up different business users. Now, you don't have to configure one for one each one. Most organizations will have a UAM strategy and tool sets. So we just literally integrate into that and we pull in from that all of the details that we need to pull in so that different people can have access to the portals that we've just looked at a moment ago. You'll notice here the sources that we've been bringing in our solution architecture. So yes, we'll bring in Teradata, metadata, and system logs, etc., from on-prem and from Vantage Cloud. We also import the BTEC, and we will automatically parse out the BTEC, and that's how we'll know what the transforms are. Now, some of our clients do a little bit in BTEC, but they do a lot of things in an ETL tool as well. So commonly that's tools like Informatica and Ab Initio, etc., data stage. So yes, we bring those in and we parse those, the metadata from those tools as well. But at this stage, we are just looking at metadata. We're not actually bringing in any of your business data whatsoever. The only time we would bring in business data is if optionally you want us to also do a data quality assessment of that data as it's going through the production cycle, which we can do. The blueprint does support that, but of course, to be able to do that, we have to have visibility of the data. So that's an option you can choose. We've talked so far about Vantage and migrating people from on-prem Teradata to a combination of on-prem and Vantage, so hybrid. Some of our clients also want us to take them off of Teradata onto Databricks or onto Snowflake. That's fine with us as well. We work with all technologies. So the blueprint is as equally at home with Databricks and Snowflake as it is with Teradata or any other technology for that matter. The blueprint can also configure, store and manage on-prem and on cloud cold storage and populate that. And you can see, as usual, the usual authorization gateways, orchestration, exception handling, auditing, everything that you'd expect in a blueprint solution. But basically, that is then everything set up for our full automation of execution. So now the exciting bit. We get into step 5 where we execute the migration. Before we step into that migration, we have our final workshop with the same stakeholders that we met with at the beginning. So that is to confirm and refine any migration rules, and also to go through in detail all of the ROI charts so they can make sure that they understand how that ROI is going to be achieved, and they can fine tweak and change anything they want to. And then finally, we'll get the go, no go. So we get the approval to go ahead. As soon as we've got that, we then make a save of the pre-migration image. We publish the as-is baseline, data sizes, cost per cost center, usage per cost center, etc. Because a lot of our clients do actually onward charge different departments within their organization for their Teradata usage. So we make it nice and easy for them by having published reports that show that charging, and we can do the charging calculations if you want to share your business rules with us. We then go ahead and we execute the automated migration driven by the business rules that you guys have approved with us. We then publish the to-be baseline. So this is the new baseline of the new environment with the cloud, the on-prem, the on-cloud cold store, the on-prem cold store, etc., and any other data sets that you've asked for as well. It's not just binary if it's either on Vantage Cloud or it's on cold store. There's other options as well, up to you. We then move into the BAU mode of working. So here we automate the monthly archives, again driven by the business rules that you've agreed with us. So there we make sure that everything stays right-sized. So it's not just a case of achieving the target 30% cost reduction in year 1. We need to make sure that year 2, year 3, year 4, it doesn't start climbing again and giving nasty shocks when the renewals come up. So basically the monthly archives are automated to make sure everything stays right-sized. So an example of that, a lot of the clients we work with, we will find they have some really enormous tables, but they haven't been able to put those onto cold store before, because when they look at the usage, they're being hit millions of times a day. So they say, well, we just can't move that. So what we do there is we look at how are those queries happening? Which data sets within those big tables are being used, and we can usually find out. Sometimes it's very simple. It's this month and last month's data is being hit and none of the older ones. Or sometimes it's a bit more sophisticated. So certain geographies might be querying that table a lot, other geographies not. Or certain applications will query parts, subsets of those big data sets. But basically we can red, amber, green those large data sets and put the ones that are safe to go onto cold store, and the rest of it will stay on the more expensive storage. So then we can look at the governance as well to solve some of the other issues that came up at that kickoff workshop. So we can then automatically publish curated data products, again, according to the same business rules that we've all agreed. So where we talked about the 5 metrics that didn't align about the pen. So now we have 3 metrics, not 5. We have a nice enterprise-wide business catalog to help people to choose the right information about the pen. But also we published a data product. So there is now a data product about the pen. Yep. And what we can automatically do within the blueprint as well, is we can repoint the views that exist today so that business users will automatically start to consume the curated data products instead of their local roll your own data sets. That makes for reports that now reconcile, a business that adds up. But also we can ongoing month by month, we can track business usage here. So we can start to see if people start to override those views and return back to their local roll your own data sets. Now, I guess we have to just step away from the blueprint for a moment and understand human behavior, because when you have multiple versions of the same truth, there's usually a reason for that. And let's be honest, if I'm being measured on my KPI, I want to look good. So when there's 3 or 4 different departments who've rolled their own KPIs and those KPIs suddenly get rolled into one enterprise-wide KPI, there'll be winners and losers. So some of those departments will look good and some of those departments will not look quite as good as they used to before. So what we do see is over time, when they think everything's settled in and nobody's applying the same degree of scrutiny, they revert back to their original roll your own metrics. But actually that scrutiny is automatically applied. So we are tracking business users. So we will approve an exception report to say, hey, these guys are now reverted to type. So some training is required, basically. AI, we can start to publish feature stores, and then on an ongoing basis, we can start to track the data sets that those AI models are using. So we can look at where there's drift happening or skew starting to come in, and we can make a recommendation that a certain model, it's time that that model is now retrained because a significant drift happened in that data set. We can automatically apply the retraining if people want that, but by and large people don't. People would much rather just get an invitation and then they can decide themselves when they want to actually run that training. They can also go into the on-demand portal to request training data for some brand new models that they're in the final stages of producing. And so that helps people to get new models to market very quickly. Also, the ongoing automated archive comes with ROI tracking, so everybody knows that they never exceed their Teradata renewal costs again. So it gives peace of mind. So now it's time for poll number 2. If you can help me out with that, Ivan.
Sure, Elaine, I'm on it. So everyone, we have one more poll for today. So you can see it under the poll session. So I request everybody to jump in and give your votes. And this was a special requested question from our speaker to understand the confidence level and the issue of the Teradata cost.
So while you're making your votes, I'll just summarize basically. As we can see from the webinar that we've been through, yes, the business case is about cost reduction, and yes, we achieve that. But we also deliver so much more in parallel to that cost reduction. You know, as we're going through and we're doing the end-to-end production cycle and the end-to-end consumption cycle, we can tick off basically every stage of this capability maturity model for data sets. So we can take people right through governance data products and active self-service. We can take people right through to active metadata for full automation and AI. So all those things that people have wanted to do but have never had the budget or the visibility to be able to do, suddenly now they have both the visibility, but also we've released some budget by reducing the renewal costs so they can actually do some of that automation and that AI. So I think before we go into the QA, maybe we have a look at the results of the poll.
Yes, Elaine, I have published it. So we have mixed reviews here. So some people are somewhat confident and the other one is limited visibility. So these are the challenges.
Yes, that's pretty representative actually. So some organizations have done a lot of work in terms of getting visibility and publishing data products, and other organizations have wanted to do that but haven't had the budget or the tooling to be able to do that. So we can certainly help, as you can see, with that. Do we have any questions that have been posed?
we have, so one of the question is, with your migration experience, do you have any metric around which technology migration gives long-term cost benefit? Option one is Teradata to Databricks or Snowflake, and option two is Teradata to Teradata Vantage.
Okay, it would be great if I had a very simple answer to that one. I don't. The reason for that is it really does depend on your circumstances. So when we've done step 2 and step 3, which is the production cycle and the consumption cycle, we will be able to give you a cost projection, both for Vantage and for Databricks and for Snowflake. So, you know, personalized to you then, you have an informed decision as to where you want to migrate to, because the cheapness of any of those 3 options can change drastically depending on not just your data volumes, but also your consumption patterns, and obviously the constraints and where you're willing to compromise on certain things or not compromise on certain things. So it very much is a sort of a custom discussion. So what I would suggest for that is reach out to us, and we can do that first part, that workshop, and load in some of the metadata, probably not the whole thing for you, but just take a sample, you know, an end-to-end scrape through of that metadata. And based on that, we'll be able to give you some indicative costs for each of the 3 options. So that will help you to then make a decision. I hope that helps.
Ellen, I think that was a good answer. And here's another question. Before the go, no-go decision, can I see what the migration savings would be and maybe tweak some things, or is it all fixed by the automated blueprint?
Yeah, well, that's quite a good question, actually. And it was a fear that at least one of our clients had. So it is a highly automated blueprint. So it takes all of the back work out of things and makes it very fast to do. So typically it's about a 12-week project cycle end to end. So it achieves a lot in 12 weeks because of that automation. So we're very proud of the automation. However, automation can also become a straitjacket if it's not used properly. So what we do, that's really why we have that final workshop. It's to make sure that all of the stakeholders are quite familiar with not just what the ROI is, but exactly how that ROI is scheduled to be achieved. So it's their final opportunity to either say yes or no and to tweak things. So they can literally tweak anything that they want to. There's absolutely nothing that the blueprint will set into stone. So when they can tweak things, they can have a look at the impact of that tweak, and they can decide, do I want that tweak or not, or shall I make a different tweak? But basically, you know, you can spend as long as you want to, you know, playing with it, tweaking it, looking at the what ifs, looking at the impact of things before you finally decide, yeah, let's go do it. Yeah. So there's nothing at all set in stone.
Then we have one more follow-up question from Pankaj from the first question. So he asked, are you planning to implement the blueprint for other legacy migrations?
Yes, so the blueprint basically supports many technologies. So we wouldn't really have to build anything differently. So far, we haven't found a technology that we can't cope with. If we did, we could write a custom ingester for that. And we have written custom ingestions for clients over the years where they have very odd technologies. But certainly all of the mainstream technologies that are used today in the market, we can ingest automatically. So yeah, that would be great. It would be great, maybe Pankaj, if you want to have a chat with us, you know, in the coming days, we can go through and look at the feasibility of different things so that we can get some answers. Yeah.
Okay. So, Helene, there's one last question. Since we are running short on time, I'll just say this. So here's the question. I just want the blueprint to suggest what to migrate to where, but my own DBAs will control the migration. Is it possible, or would we not see the ROI report after? So that is the last question, Helene.
Okay, that's actually a very real question as well, because one of the clients that we worked with very recently did exactly that. So basically what we did with them is we used the blueprints to get right up as if it was going to do the migration. So it automatically produced all of the migration scripts. We passed those over to their DBAs. We sat down with the DBAs, we walked them through it. The DBAs then went away on their own to decide how they wanted to tweak. In the end, they didn't actually tweak, but they could have done if they wanted to. And then they scheduled and executed the actual migration themselves. But although they didn't tweak anything, we don't actually know that they've tweaked or not tweaked when they do the migration. So what we did for safety's sake is we did a second ingest of the new migrated environment, because we hadn't migrated it ourselves. We ingested it back again just to make sure, because sometimes people say I didn't tweak anything, and they did. So we ingested that in, so you could then see all of the ROI reports and graphs, because we then have the original baseline and the new baseline. So that's how we did it for that client. And it didn't take any extra time. We just ran the ingest as soon as they gave us the nod that the migration was completed. We just ran the ingest overnight, because the scripts are obviously already there. So it wasn't a big deal at all. And they used those ROI reports, and indeed they're still using them today, because they use the automated monthly archive. And they will probably be using that for many years to come. So they make sure that their Teradata environment, either on-prem and in Vantage Cloud, never grows. So yeah, they're very happy.
I think the questions. Pardon, Elaine?
Are we out of time, or are we doing okay?
We still have 10 more minutes. So I think the Q&A session is over.
Okay.
And we can, officially the presentation. So I just want to thank you, Elaine, for this wonderful presentation. This rising Teradata cost is actually a nightmare for a lot of companies out there. And we all know it, because data cost is the actual nightmare. And, seeing this practical way to move from this manual tracking to finally get some control over the Teradata cost, it's a lifesaver. Thank you so much. And once again, thanks everybody for joining us, and for all your questions and answers. Questions, and also for jumping in on our poll. So to everyone on the live, thanks again. We really appreciate your time. And to see this recording, we will be actually sharing a on-demand watchable link for this video, so which you can share it with your colleagues, team members. And yeah, and thanks once again. And it's really, really, heartfelt thanks to everybody who has joined us. And we'll see you all on a next webinar, and we'll be diving into more of this cost saving and other related challenges. And have an amazing rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.